of the common practices that you see in medicine, particularly as it pertains to blood testing or testing in general, just establishing a baseline, figuring out where you are. What are some of the tests that you think are neglected? What are some of the common, perhaps, mistakes or glaring deficits of how traditional medicine approaches testing? So you can tackle that from any direction.
Yeah, no,
I'm just trying to figure out, because there are a lot of people listening, I'm sure, who go to the doctor once a year. They get a snapshot. There's no trending. If they're in range, see you next year. That's it. You know what I mean?
The check engine oil light is not on.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
No, it is it's a huge box to open. But, a couple of the things that you kind of alluded to with even as you kind of led into that is that first you have to kind of, there's a psyche and an ideology of like, we want to judge things as good and bad. And so there's this idea that inflammation is bad. This is good. High cholesterol bad. This is, low cholesterol good. And so like, one, you have to understand what blood testing actually represents. So first of all, you said the first thing, it's a snapshot. It's a moment in time, and we're not an object, we're a process. So you have to understand, not only like, you have to understand the context of what the person or the individual is in comparatively to,
I'm
what
listening.
the blood
I'm
test
going to
is.
get us more.
Carry on.
More grape.
Grape beverage.
Extract. Yeah.
Absolutely. Say something like, there's some literature that suggests that if you have high LDL cholesterol, you can actually build more lean body mass at a quicker rate. So if you're in a strength building phase, it actually might be to your advantage to actually have that present. So you need to know context. You need to know that it is a snapshot. I actually think that it's a tragedy that testing is so damn expensive, given that technology in fields like information technology and computers has increased, exponentially at such a better price point. We need people to get many more data sets, and there are companies like Theranos that are out there trying to break that barrier down. So I want more testing. I want context. And then you have to understand what the marker actually represents, not just a judgment of whether it's a good or bad marker. What the hell is cholesterol? I like to ask that to physicians, especially if they're antagonizing me, about my practice methods. I say, hey, what does cholesterol do? And it's interesting because a lot of them will take a step back and they'll fumble because they're so indoctrinated into the algorithm of all I really need to do is identify high cholesterol and treat it, versus understanding what the hell, cholesterol, what purpose it serves, in the human body. So when you're asking Tim, like what markers I would look at, it's tough. I can tell you what I look at most, commonly. I'd love to hear that. I look at things like, homocysteine, which is a marker of metabolic efficiency. Conventional medicine looks at it as if it were elevated, it can increase your risk of having blood clots and strokes and heart attacks. But really there's this common cog in the human body that takes carbon units and transfers them to other molecules, whether we're building things in the body. And so the ability of the body to actually do that is called methylation. It's donating a carbon and a hydrogen. And so methionine is an essential amino acid, is a main donor. And then you have B12 and folic acid, which are vitamins that are crucial for recycling that process to keep the metabolism going efficiently. So like I look at it, and that's something where with Juliet, when we looked at her homocysteine levels, they were tremendously higher than you would want. And so then we said, okay, wait a second. Is she B12 deficient? Is she folic acid deficient? Does she have a gene variation that doesn't allow her to activate the folic acid properly? And so we went down those paths and we kind of uncovered that and sort of gave her body a break and gave it some relief and allowed it to actually catch up metabolically, which strangely enough improved things like her mood. Correct.
How about her awesomeness? We'll just put that.
Absolutely.
But you bring up, it's the first and foremost is that, your in my education, was given a cursory.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers again. Go. Eye contact. Thank you.
Scandinavian here. I'm really judged if I got that.
I don't want bad sex for the billionaires.
That would ruin our relationship.
Again, I had to dig and go back and sort of review. I think one of the problems is, and I think you've done a good job with this, Tim, is that you said, hey, look, if we give people better ideas, they'll make better information, they'll make better decisions. You absolutely just empower. And people don't have any of the information, which is free, which is available. And now it's easy to find. Mm-hmm. Like when you started For Our Body, it was a wasteland. Like when you started it.
Super tough.
And now, if you have to honestly say that now, how many years later, so when did you start writing that book?
2008.
To 2000 now.
Yeah.
It is a completely different universe.
Different landscape.
I mean, you can go to get gluten-free magazine at the, right? I mean, like something has changed.
Oh, yes,
right? So if that's changed and people are taking fish oil, you have to educate yourself, because if you're not asking your physician or developing a relationship with your physician and hoping that they're going to initiate this conversation, you're wrong. And this is, I think, the real issue is that you've got to, it's on me to ask for some of these basics.
Oh, definitely. And I think also, and, Justin, I love your 2 cents on this, but I imagine I'm somewhat compulsive with my blood testing. I've toned it down a little bit, but I mean, I used to be like every 2 to 4 weeks. Granted, I was doing some pretty fucked up stuff to myself, but, now it's just once every 2 or 3 months. But
it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger.
That's right. Hormesis. That's, it's kind of like Princess Bride, when that guy slowly takes small amounts of poison so that when he goes against exactly the Sicilian, when death is on the line, then you win the game. So, but how often do you feel people should, and I agree with you that it's kind of silly how expensive it still is to have proper blood testing done. And I'm actually involved with a company called Sano Intelligence, which is hopefully going to develop basically what looks like a nicotine patch that can do tracking of biomarkers and trending of biomarkers 24/7.
Amazing.
We'll see. Dude, obviously,
sign me up.
Yeah, absolutely right. And
how do you know what you know? Honestly,
Yeah.
People say diet and exercise. I love this. Greg Glassman, he's like, oh yeah, which diet and what exercise? Fool. You know what I mean? Like really. And you mentioned something that was really latent. I think that I don't know how much you stepped on this or not, but there is a genetic component to this whole thing.
Yeah.
It turns out, wait for it, I don't process saturated fats like everyone else does.
Right. You don't.
Yeah. I can't eat bacon 5 meals a day and come out unscathed.
So wait, how did you figure this out?
Because I had my blood tested and I had some of my genes tested. And what they said was, you don't handle the saturated fats. You need a little bit less saturated fat. You should be lean paleo or lean-ish, right? Correct.
So how did you change your diet, supplements, et cetera, as a result of that?
Well, essentially, Major put me on some niacin.
Yeah.
That I tinkered with. But
I like it just for the flush, because
I don't mind the flush. People freak out about the flush. I'm like, it kind of feels, I don't mind it. Maybe I should take some more flush again. The niacin flush.
Just wait until you have menopause. It's going to be
truth.
Yeah.
What happened, was that I stopped eating as much bacon. Mm-hmm. The pieces for me, when I ran into Major the first time.
So I thought that was an exaggeration, the bacon 5 meals a day.
No, really. It was and I stopped eating as much red meat, because all the red meat I was eating was mostly grass fed.
Yeah.
But sometimes it wasn't.
Yeah, sure.
And so I made decisions. I started eating more fish. I started eating more chicken. I started eating more, leaner things. And that has made a difference. I mean, but I was living the lie that I see so many people living, where like, oh, I can live on 5 hours of sleep. Oh, really? Oh, there's not a single study where you need only 5 hours of sleep. Yeah. People are like, oh, Bill Clinton. I'm like, yeah, and he had a fucking heart attack.
And plus he's a fucking android. Like, I mean, he's like, he's Bishop from Aliens. I mean, that guy.
Heart attack.
Yeah.
Both. He died.
Yeah.
We kept him alive. Stop that. Yeah. I mean, but I think I stopped. I was traveling and not sleeping. This is interesting. I work with San Jose Sharks.
Yeah.
Right. Mike Potenza is the great strength coach there. Really integrated approach. But the Sharks have to travel. It's a hockey team. They have to travel in all the time zones. And they started working with the sleep researchers at Stanford. And Stanford, Shannon Turley and the strength conditioning there, they're doing like progressive integrated approach, which we'll bring back to something we said earlier. But the Stanford people say for every hour of time change, and all the people who are listening who are time travelers, they travel from East Coast to West Coast, it's an entire day for every hour.
Wow.
And I started taking
So wait, what does that mean? So if you travel 5 hours across the country,
it takes you 5 days to normalize again. That's how have you ever seen this study?
What if you fuck yourself? Well, fuck with yourself. Here we go. Let's have some more.
You can only optimize
with like
it.
melatonin.
Well, you can only optimize it.
Yeah.
You're still
Intermittent fasting might help too.
Right. That's right. So
I'm going to come back to that, so don't let me forget. Or you can go for it.
Well, this is it. So how do I minimize the compromise? Which is one of the things.
A lot of people are only going to be in one place for 2 days, right?
Right.
Sharks,
then
they're bouncing
you fly
all over the
back,
place.
and now you're screwed again.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is you can get a blood glucose meter, which I think is the cheapest form of testing. Oh, really? You want to find out what the real truth is about your life? Go pay $12.
Go to Walgreens and
get a.
Yeah, exactly.
So I start taking my blood glucose, eating like a monk. Okay, I'm not going to drink wine. I'm not going to eat cookies. I'm going to but I would come back, and I would be my blood glucose would be 99. Because I would just be fucked up from the travel. And I'd be like, oh, pre-diabetic. That's great. And I'm doing everything right. And I'm pre-diabetic. And I would be pre-diabetic for like 24 to 48 hours.
Wow.
And now I have a glass of wine to unwind because that's how I'm coping with the sympathetic stress. And you can see how, I suddenly cycle into this piece. I stop sleeping more. I have to travel less because I've been able to make some changes. I sleep plus 9 hours a night.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And everything has changed.
People always ask me, they're like, oh, you must sleep like 2 hours a night. Like, it's a waste of time. I'm like, no, I love
pounds of muscle. 10 pounds.
In what period? How long?
Since October.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, literally.
You're already a pretty meaty dude.
What?
You're like one of your quads is probably my body weight, I'd guess.
You know how it is.
On
a weekday.